2021 was a great year for films, and there are a couple difficulties I had to face when making this top 10 video. Firstly, I haven't seen every movie ever made that was released in 2021. Secondly, I just love too many films from this year, so it was very tough to rank them. The weird thing about ranking videos is that they literally change every day, so this is, as of now, the current list of my top 10 favorite films of 2021. This list is clearly opinion based, so you might or might not find your favorite film on this list, either because I did not watch it, didn't like it, or there wasn't enough space for it to make it onto the list. The point of this video is not only to talk about my favorite films, but for you people to watch these movies you might not have seen or heard about. Now, before I make my top 10, here are some honorable mentions that unfortunately couldn't make it onto the list, but deserve a mention. Mind you, this is not ranked. Some films I really liked: Karnan, Annette, The Suicide Squad, Pig, Sardar Udham, Malignant, In the Heights, Last Night in Soho, The French Dispatch, Minal Murli, and Tick Tick Boom. And some other films I loved that also did not make it into the list are Wheel of Fortune and Fantasy, Drishyam 2, Petite Maman, The Last Duel, Red Rocket, Matrix Resurrections, Spider-Man No Way Home, and another film I would have loved to talk about but unfortunately scored 11th place in my ranking is Titan, directed by Julia Ducournau. It's absolutely disturbing as it is a body horror film, but seriously, this is one of the best films to come out from last year. Right, so now after that extremely long prologue, let's get on with what you actually came here for. So I present to you my top 10 favorite films of 2021. Number 10, The Worst Person in the World. This is a great movie. It follows the life of our protagonist Julie and all of her relationships. She's very flawed and very human and embodies us. She makes good and bad choices. She feels confused about her feelings and her choices and forms good and bad relationships along the way. Sometimes we feel empathetic towards her, but sometimes we can't agree with her questionable decisions. Julie is an ever-changing person, and I think it captures the life and mind of a young individual figuring out their life and what they want pretty accurately. Number 9, Coda. Without giving too much away, this movie feels personal and human. Cinema can make you empathize, and I felt for the characters in this film. They don't even feel like characters. They're people, real people, with believable feelings and flaws. They felt like people I knew, people I would hang out with. The conflict here is small scale and personal, and instead of it seeming forced, it all comes from the characters' internal and external flaws. It is all natural and human. It's about our protagonist Ruby and how she struggles to live amongst her loving family, all of whom happen to be deaf. And the film has empathy towards every character and their own struggles and dreams. I had completely forgotten that I was watching a movie and felt like I was just living with these people. Number 8, The Great Indian Kitchen. In terms of plot, this is actually a very simple film. A woman gets married and she has to suffer the consequences of being a housewife. But the reason this film is great is in its filmmaking, which elevates the script. Without once feeling too over the top or heavy handed, the film manages to communicate its theme of critiquing the Indian societal norms of what a woman should do. And it does so by putting us in the headspace of our main character, whose name is never mentioned, signifying how she is the every woman. The camera lingers with no movement at all, as if we are a secret passive viewer watching this woman do these never-ending household chores and suffer the consequences of even the slightest mistake. The lack of any camera movement here allows us to just sit there, and due to there being no cuts, we really get to feel the time passing by. And many times I felt that the shot was going on for way too long, but it works because that is the point. It uses its magnificent filmmaking to make us feel what many women in the country feel. Number 7, The Green Knight. This is an epic medieval fantasy film that just blew me away. We follow the journey of our protagonist Sir Gawain, who is a knight, or so we think, because throughout the film he is faced with situations that challenge his position as a knight and whether his decisions really make him worthy of being a knight. The tone of the film is somewhat fantastical, which is suiting considering the world of the story takes place in. The outstanding use of strong colors only accentuate its magical spirit. There are ghosts, stalking foxes, and a literal green knight who resembles a tree, showing his connection with nature. Many times a shot will linger without cutting, which allows us to feel the time passing by and its consequences, as time plays a major role in this film. The film's editing is meticulous, as sometimes it cuts between past and present, and also a possible future, which serves to add to the themes of the film about honor and what it takes to be a real knight. A24 just continues to impress me. Number 6, Drive My Car. This is one of the most moving films from this year. It's a film about a theatre director losing his wife and due to getting in an accident has a driver who drives him wherever he needs to go. But this is the external plot, if you could say that. The film might not be for everyone considering its 3-hour runtime, which can certainly test your patience, but this one just clicked for me. This is a film about loss and grief, but it's not very straightforward. You don't see the main character crying and being upset all the time. He's reserved and continues to work on the play he was trying to put together. This doesn't mean that the death didn't affect him, he just rarely chooses to grieve because that's just how he is. This is also a very weird film because I can't really express why I love it. Maybe because it was an honest and raw portrayal of the human emotion. These characters feel like real people, and the lack of a conventional plot allows for the film to feel like real life. I don't really know how or why I was captivated for the entire 3 hours. But it's not just that it did not bore me, every shot composition, every creative choice just felt right. The people behind this film know what they are trying to achieve and they're successful at it. The lengthy runtime adds to the central theme of the film, which is that despite the loss we may face, life goes on and we just have to keep living. And this film is about finding strength amidst the darkest of times to continue to live our lives. This reminded me of the power of cinema to generate empathy, definitely one of the most moving films in recent times, and I will be thinking about this for quite a while. Number 5, Spencer. This is a film that took me a while to get into. I was a bit puzzled trying to understand what it's trying to say, but once I got to know what it really was about, it hooked me in and did not let me go until the end credits. Our protagonist is Princess Diana, who is marvelously played by Kristen Stewart, and we follow her struggle of being a royalty. The camera always pushes in on the face of the actors, portraying Diana from a subjective lens, where we get to be in her headspace and empathize with her. Since she's a princess, we get to see how her limitations affect her. The curtains are always to be closed to hide her from the press, but this only makes Diana long for a sense of fresh air as she feels stuck and claustrophobic inside her own home, which is beautifully portrayed through the short compositions where Diana feels small and alien amidst the large halls. We see her struggling with not only the pressures of being a princess but also a woman in the 90s. Her royal status causes everyone to be nice and gentle with her, but this only makes Diana long for genuine human connection outside of her sons, where someone can be honest with her and not just pretend to be nice just so that they don't lose their job. The netted veil in her dress is representative of how she has to guard her real emotions from others in order to keep a facade for the public. She's always being told about how everyone knows about everything, and this also makes Diana feel like her privacy is being invaded. It's almost like a horror film in a way. Spencer is a film about a woman attempting to break free from the shackles she has been tied to, with wonderful performances and filmmaking to elevate the quality of the film to an extensive degree. Number 4, West Side Story. Steven Spielberg continues to prove why he is one of, if not the best filmmaker working today. Not only is his retelling of West Side Story fun, it also manages to weave in social themes about the racism that took place in New York during the 50s. There are unemployed members of a gang called the Jets who are fighting for a territory that they claim is theirs against another gang called the Sharks, who are Puerto Ricans living on the West Coast as legal citizens. And in between this is a blooming romance between Tony and Maria, an American man and a Puerto Rican woman, who are trapped amidst their nationalities and the brewing conflict outside of it. But with all of this, there are also wonderful songs and dances. Steven Spielberg's direction shines through every frame and every camera move. The film shares the energy of the dancers who just flow through like a painting, and there's racial conflict even during the dance, as the film's editing and choice of framing shows how the Jets and Sharks are trying to one-up each other constantly. When things get serious, they really get serious. And this dispute amongst the two communities causes real consequences to take place when the characters have to pay for their actions. Just a great time at the movies and definitely an instant classic. I cannot wait to rewatch this anytime soon. Number 3, Mitchells vs. the Machines. This is a very surprising one for me as well because Sony Animations had rarely ever put out something memorable other than Spider-Verse. When I first heard about this movie, I wasn't at all interested in it. From the poster initially it looked like another generic cookie cutter animated film. But for some odd reason I decided to give it a watch and I was simply blown away by how great it really was. This proved to me that Spider-Verse wasn't just a fluke. The animation medium has been used to full effect in this movie. I love how it blends 2D and 3D animation seamlessly, like Into the Spider-Verse, and it can look extremely imaginative and adds to the comedic tone of the film. Speaking of comedy, this movie is one of the most hilarious films I've ever seen. No joke, very reminiscent of Lord and Miller's comedic style, which is subversion. Things are set up or spoken, then the exact opposite thing happens, and it's hilarious. While being funny, the film is is also very beautiful. The Mitchells are an extremely flawed family. They can't work together and have their own internal conflict present amongst themselves. And throughout the film, this conflict is further explored and resolves beautifully. An uncompromised vision that boldly is what it is, and it executes its themes effortlessly. Each and every little moment in the film comes back later to conclude their character arc, while also being an emotional callback. An unexpected masterpiece. I hope Sony keeps making pictures like this where the creators get to express themselves in their own crazy and unique ways. Number 2, Dune. Funnily enough, I thought this was actually going to be number 1. It could be later on if I change my mind, but Dune is literally everything I wanted it to be and more. Denis Villeneuve is one of the best directors working today, and I knew Dune was going to be great just as I saw the trailer because I have complete faith in his ability to tell stories. Hans Zimmer's score is phenomenal. The music feels futuristic yet cultural, grounding it in a way, and also making it feel a tad bit modern. The sound design also works. I felt every explosion and punch. Of course, visually it's a blast. Every shot is perfectly framed and makes you feel just what the makers want you to feel. I also loved all the well-cast actors who did their job really well. Dune is a film about succession of power and accepting the call to leadership. It does feel a little incomplete, but that's why we have a part 2 coming up that I cannot wait for. I trusted Denis Villeneuve and he fulfilled it. And number 1 is Licorice Pizza. This is essentially a film with no clear plot, no big themes or overarching character arcs. But according to me at least, it is an absolute cinematic masterpiece. The kind of films with no plot are always a gamble for me because many times my criticism against certain movies is the lack of plot, which can make the film disinteresting, but it just works in Licorice Pizza. I was never waiting or expecting for something to happen, so I just went along with the film and where it was taking me. Once I knew what the film was aiming for, everything just clicked for me. The film is simply about capturing a fleeting moment in a specific time period and how the society of that time affects our two main characters. This is clearly a masterful filmmaker at the height of his creative genius, clearly just having fun, depicting the vibe of a bygone era with a sense of nostalgia and longing. This isn't the PTA of psychologically heavy films like There Will Be Blood, The Master and Phantom Thread. This is PTA going back to his roots of films like Boogie Nights, Magnolia and Punch Drunk Love. Licorice Pizza would make for a great double feature with Quentin Tarantino's Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. This film was definitely worth the wait after Anderson's previous venture Phantom Thread. Licorice Pizza is an instant classic and I cannot wait to view it repeatedly in the coming years. So yeah, this was my current top 10 favorite films of 2021 and I would love to know your own list of favorites down in the comment section. Seriously, I would love to discuss it with all of you. You guys can tell me how wrong I am or some film that you think I should not have missed out on. Hopefully you watch these movies if you haven't already. 2021 was a great year for films and I cannot wait for what 2022 has in store. Thank you for watching.